Welcome to Giants Nation. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner. Today we've got an interview with Jordan Raanan of ESPN talking about Giants OTAs. There's a fight, OTA fight. It's kind of crazy. When you're not wearing shoulder pads or anything, uh, I'm just surprised to see a fight. I guess it was Brian Burns versus James Hudson, and then it became Kayvon versus Jermaine Illuminor, and then James Hudson and Brian Burns jumped in on that. Kind of crazy for OTAs to be having a fight like that. I don't think it really means anything. I'm always a fan of fights. Just the sad thing about being in OTAs is we don't get video of it like we would in training camp. So it just won't be the memorable fight that I was hoping for. But we have Jordan Raanan on talking about OTAs, Jaxson Dart, all that good stuff, and the regime as a whole. So we'll get into that in just a second. First episode brought to you by Mr. Jonathan Snow, Dr. Snow, not Dr. Ice, Dr. Snow. He went to patreon.com/Giants Nation. The Patreon is what is supporting this show. Obviously, we're trying to add more sponsorships and stuff and maybe having some, rework deals and stuff. But the Patreon is what is keeping Giants Nation alive. So if you want to support the show, it is the life of blood of it. It's patreon.com/Giants Nation. We have two tiers, the $6 tier and then the $9.99 tier. The $10 one is preferred. We're got t-shirt contests, so we're giving away 6 t-shirts. I'll do that sometime either this weekend or next week. So that's on there. You get stickers, all that good stuff. Again, it's patreon.com/Giants Nation. Would be really appreciative if you could support it. There's not a ton that's exclusive to Patreon right now, but once the season gets rolling, there'll be some exclusive stuff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this can be all this exclusive stuff, but there'll be some stuff that's exclusive to Patreon. So appreciate you guys, and here is Jordan Raanan. We now welcome on Jordan Raanan of ESPN, Toney Award winner. He's live at the Giants practice facility. How we doing? How was OTA number 6 and number 2 for the media?
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't get to see fights very often in the spring.
Like I couldn't believe it when I saw the tweet.
And this wasn't just like guys pushing. This was like they were pissed. Like it was even after Brian Daboll gathered the team around in the middle of the field and gave his speech and I think said enough of this already. Like they broke out of that, and Kayvon Thibodeau was still talking junk to the offensive linemen, like yelling at them. Like it was definitely heated. I mean, I'm sure at the end of the day it'll be a footnote, but for the moment, you see he threw a real haymaker at Thibodeau trying to hit Jermaine Illuminor, which I'm sure won't sit well. And it's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward.
I guess that's the first question is just people love fights, including myself. Step by step, how did the fight happen? And then we can talk about the things that are actually important.
All right. So you're just kind of casually watching, trying to keep track, but you're not sitting there watching the lines right during OTAs. So the first, when I picked it up, you saw James Hudson and Brian Burns sort of pushing and shoving, yelling at each other. They're pissed off at each other, right? Okay, fine. Happens. They get sent off the field. That happens all the time. Not a big deal. Very next play now, Kayvon Thibodeau and Jermaine Illuminor start going at it after the play, right? As the play ends, Illuminor's helmet gets pulled off. Thibodeau at that point tried to throw a real punch at him, like as they're yelling and screaming at each other. I believe it missed.
But so Illuminor's helmet was off?
Yeah, Illuminor's helmet got popped off. Yeah.
And so Kayvon threw a punch at him with him having his helmet on?
Yes, and I don't believe it hit. I think it missed. But they were like sort of wrestling, and then as his helmet came off, Kayvon was threw a punch, like a big time punch, like roundhouse wild. Don't think it connected. Without the instant replay, it's hard to kind of tell because you can't tape these kind of periods of practice. And then so they're going at it, and then James Hudson, who's still furious, darts in from the sideline and tackles Kayvon, and then Brian Burns, who obviously is ticked off at James Hudson, flies in too, and they're all tackling each other, and all hell's breaking loose. And they're like legitimately all yelling at each other and screaming and mad at something or whatever, how everything played out. Kayvon was going like this. Enough with the something about the offensive line yapping. You can't just yap or you can't just talk. Afterwards, I don't really know what it was. And Brian Burns afterwards came out, talked to the media, squashed it. He said, just the heat, just a little football. That's what they do. Football players, they downplay it afterwards. We'll see ultimately long term if it has any long term effects, relationship wise or whatever. But for now, just a footnote in the spring. Unusual for sure. You don't see this in the spring.
I mean, I don't mind if a Jermaine Owens or Kayvon Thibodeau hate each other. Go for it. What
Exactly
is this is the last thing I'll answer at the fight is they ended practice early. I remember when that 2021 brawl happened and Joe Judge, you guys talked about how you guys could hear him cussing for, a nice 5 minutes straight and every word detailed. And then I think he made them like run sprints essentially for 20 straight minutes. How did Brian Daboll handle it? Could you hear, or did he just huddle them up and end the practice?
Yeah, they huddled up. You couldn't really hear too much. Like he wasn't yelling and screaming that loud. I think because he knew there was a lot of people within earshot. So it's probably not something he would want to do in that situation. And then they just broke off into groups and, it was by position, huddled up, it said their prayers like which is what they normally do at the end of practice. And the practice was almost over. You're probably talking like literally probably 2 minutes left in practice. But, it was an interesting practice. Otherwise, Jaxson Dart didn't have his best day. Russell Wilson actually played really well, made some really good throws downfield. Jaxson Dart was with the second team, which was interesting because last time we were here, he was with the third team. Jalin Hyatt, again, a big factor. Theo Johnson made some plays. So, yeah, it was a good practice. The defensive line and defense in general was getting a lot of pressure.
Right. And I don't want to I don't like doing like day by day OTA reports and stuff and spending too much time on that. And I also don't want to, I didn't want to spend the whole offseason talking about when will Jaxson Dart play, but they keep on doing pretty interesting things with him, right? Where they threw him in for a first team rep and this is while you guys are there too, which, they are very conscious of hiding stuff for some reason, when really no one's paying attention to it that much. What do you make of Dart getting that jump over Jameis into the second team and not just a couple first team reps sprinkled in there?
Yeah, he did have another, some first team reps sprinkled in there again today, which is, I just think it's part of the rotation. It's part of how they're going to get everybody snaps. You're going to see Russ is going to get all the ones. That's pretty clear. He's been getting all the ones. You talk to guys, he's already sort of established himself as a leader. Who knows how long it lasts for? Probably not the whole season, but it is what it is. He's the starting quarterback, right? After that, I think we're going to see a rotation, different days, different guys, different reps. Jameis some days will be the full two, getting all the twos. Maybe Dart gets some twos. Still fills in with the threes. Tommy gets threes. I bet there's one day where Tommy gets more reps. I don't know. I haven't seen that yet, but I just think this is how they're going to sort of distribute the reps, and it's part of the developmental plan for Jaxson Dart is to get him in with different groups against better competition at times. He slips in for it's one or two first team reps here or there, right? Like throughout practice, when he gets 2 or 3 total. But it'll be at the end of a period. He'll just sneak one in. And Jameis did too. Jameis snuck in a couple for maybe 2 first team reps at some point, something like that. Got to go through my notes and if you want to be exact. But I think you get the point. It's just sort of how they're going to handle this QB rotation, which Brian Daboll decided he wasn't going to give you any part of last week, which is just what are you hiding, right? We're going to see it on the field. Just why not just explain why you're doing it and what your thought process is behind it to the fans of how you're going to utilize your first round pick quarterback in the summer and spring.
But, and again, there's going to be a lot of speculation until Dart eventually does play. And you got to see how games actually play out. And that obviously has a part of it. But I think something we underestimate is we all had our thoughts on Jaxson Dart pre-draft and then post-draft. If you liked him, you're pumped. If you're not, you're like, all right, let's mold this guy and see him get him better. But Daboll's the guy who's put the most on out there for Jaxson Dart. So he likes him. So I bet you Daboll wants him to play more, quicker than anybody eventually.
I did notice this. I had this. Yeah, Brian Daboll spending so they split up into 2 groups in the early part during individual drills, right? Offensively, So 2 quarterbacks, it's Russ and Jameis on one side of the field. And the other side of the field, it's Dart DeVito. Brian Daboll spends an inordinate amount of time with the 3rd and 4th string quarterbacks.
Oh, wow.
Which I think
doesn't happen ever.
Yeah, which is definitely notable, right? Because obviously Jaxson Dart, they have a lot invested in him. I mean, he's so it is something that I noticed today. I'm like, oh, he's standing over here with the 2 and the 3 and 4 quarterback. The 1 and 2 quarterback are over there working with the starters. And I think I've noticed that both practices, he's spending a lot of time with Jaxson Dart, and because like you said, that's his guy.
That's actually interesting because I've been to I've been to 3 years of training camp practice with Brian Daboll, and you've been to all the OTAs. They send like the assistant QB coach and the tight end coach, and then they just is like, all right, you guys go work on the other side while we do the important stuff over here. So Daboll,
But they haven't had a rookie 1st round pick quarterback before,
right? But I enjoy getting all these glimpses of the way that they're doing it because I think I've been surprised. Like again, I was not expecting Jaxson Dart to get any 1st team reps, and so I think him getting, I think that is, important information. And then today, just being with the 2nd team, we're learning more and more about like their plan for him, and it's not just simply like, oh, he's QB3, he goes through the system, he learns. No, they are being intentional about like this is the guy who really matters the most. He's not the starter right away, but we're not going to treat him, hell, Pat Shurmur, with Daniel Jones. The only time he got any of that was the preseason games, where he got any 1st team work. It was like they would keep the 1st team in for an extra series or 2 to give DJ that. And, that was a 6th overall pick compared to 25th.
He was working with, that 2nd team offense, 3rd team offense with Darius Slayton.
Oh, I remember Darius Slayton. I still remember the Matt Lombardo tweet of them working together after practice.
Matt Lombardo tweet. There you go.
I know that's crazy how I remember that. Obviously, having Eli Manning there compared to Russell Wilson's a different story, but I think Russ takes that stuff in strides really well, or pretends to.
But Russ still demands a certain amount of respect as a Super Bowl winning quarterback who came here to sign as a starter. That's what I glean from talking to people, seeing how they're handling it. Russ is the unequivocal, he established himself as a leader already. Like he's organizing team dinners. They went out recently with the offensive line, the running backs, and the quarterbacks. He's putting together all these throwing sessions. Somebody, I forget who it was, maybe it was Kafka threw in there. He did one. I know he went to San Diego and did one with guys like Daniel Bellinger and stuff. He did one in Atlanta with, was it Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, and Wan'Dale Robinson. He also did one with Jalin Hyatt, is what we found out today, in Los Angeles at some point. So, he does command a lot of respect, and he is developing himself as a leader here.
I said, there is, what, I'm going to ask some more OTA questions because I want to just hear about Jaxson Dart's like day and the, kind of get the play-by-play of the interceptions because we're not there to see that and they won't ever post those. But what's up with Jalin Hyatt? Obviously Malik Nabers isn't practicing. Are they actually going to get him involved? I'm not even going to say is he going to be good, but like, I mean, he's confident enough to where he's tweeting, I hold grudges, I don't forget. Like, is it just the same old stuff with Jalin Hyatt that the last 2 years where he gets a bunch of big plays in training camp, and then when they actually play games, you got to do more than that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where we're always in the back of our mind, like, first of all, when Malik Nabers comes back, does he just disappear again? Right? Like, how does that work? But I will say this. I do think, like, they clearly have sort of reset the Jalin Hyatt situation. And we're kind of back where we were last year in training camp, in the spring, whatever. Whereas last year, it was just, he was off the radar, right? He was just like it was barely part. What do you have, 7 catches?
8 catches for 62 yards.
60, yeah, 8 for 62. I mean, come on. That's like, the fact that a guy who's had 8 for 62 is spending the spring running with the first team, I think is notable, right? They could easily just have little Jordan Humphrey playing as big a role as Jalin Hyatt. And would you even blink?
I wouldn't. I think a lot of people would, but I wouldn't.
But that's only name recognition. Like, his role last year was minimal, right? We know that. Like, I think he has talent. I think it's ridiculous that they got so little out of him, and he should be a player. Like, yes, he might be limited in some ways, but he's not some scrub. Jalin Hyatt could play in the NFL. So, he could do some things.
Well, if he can't produce this year, then he'll never ever produce because they literally got the perfect. Like, there's not a better quarterback in the NFL for Jalin Hyatt than Russell Wilson. It's like
What's his role going to be, though? What's his role really going to be when Nabers is back?
It's not going to be much. My thing is if he, let's say Slayton or Nabers misses a game, like that's what I'm like. I'm not talking about. I don't really care about his role. I'm like, can you actually develop as a player? Because I understand he can catch deep passes, and that's an important thing, and that's big. But you also have Nabers and Slayton who can do that and everything else. So if you're not doing the everything else, you're more of a gimmick player than anything, no matter how many grudges you hold.
But I mean, let's just be realistic. The early results are positive so far. I mean, it could be the other way around. He could just be running around the field looking like he did during the season last year, but he's not. Yeah. He's been looking pretty good. He's been making some plays. I have him down for 3 targets, 2 catches with Russ, maybe more. Go on the next page. No, 3 catches, 2 targets with Russ. Out of what? 4, 8, 11.
Oh, you're charting
and 17 throws for Wilson. He's getting 3 of the targets.
Yeah.
A couple catches. One was a nice one over the middle early in practice.
I'd like Hyatt to get some type of involvement. It's just never going to be as a full-time receiver, at least in my opinion. But before we get into some big picture stuff, Jaxson Dart had 2 interceptions. We'll forget about this in, 8 hours, but can you talk to me about them and what happened?
So I'm looking at my notes here.
Do they still have you guys parked 50, yards away?
We were on the backfield today, which is the best field, so you're pretty close. But you have to remember, they were going the other direction, so they're going away from you. So you're kind of like your vision at time can be muddied by the offensive line because you're at field level and they're going in the other direction. So I'd say maybe one of them just seemed to be in traffic in the middle. The other one was one of those where you're like rolling at, he's like running away from pressure. It's late in the play, trying to make an off-platform throw. And, he kind of what happened. I think it was last week. He did the same thing where you're just trying to make a play on the run. He seems to be kind of learning, hey, there's certain throws you can't make at this level. You know what I mean? On the move, it's not so easy. You can't just try to fit it in against these guys, even if it was the second team. Both of them are the second team. Number 37 and 38.
Makari Page and 38.
Makari Page, and I believe is that Lane?
No, I think Raheem. Actually, this is good trivia. That's
very
good. 38. All right, I'm going to give myself 10 seconds to figure that out.
I'll filibuster. Makari Page was definitely the first interception.
Well, you said 37 and 38?
Yeah.
Oh, to lockdown Larry, Trey Hawkins.
You're right. Yeah, Trey Hawkins. I think that one I think was maybe a deep one that we couldn't really see because it was like behind all the linemen, and so it was in the corner.
Both 6'3" DBs, so just stay away from the tall DBs, Jaxson Dart.
There you go.
But let's talk some big picture stuff. It's basically confirmed that Kafka's calling plays. They obviously we won't get any 100% being told that's happened until week 1. Do you have any insight on what has went into that decision?
All I can base it on is kind of what we've heard so far, right? And that was John Mara at the end of the season saying he told Brian Daboll that he should think about giving up play calling. And so when the owner does that, Bobby, what's going to happen ultimately in the end? Now, I thought Brian Daboll would want to go down swinging. I don't know if people close to Brian Daboll said that I know that said he's going to want to call plays, but it seems like he's taken the suggestion of the owner here, and that being the best case. And also, here's what I've seen is that he also is going to be heavily involved in the development of Jaxson Dart. So if he's calling plays, that then takes away time from, like I said, from him going and standing with the 3rd and 4th string quarterback, right, Bobby?
Yeah, he just can't do that.
Yeah, so I think that all this factors into the equation. Kind of came how they came to this, and they're gonna look. You could always after the spring say, you know what, I think I could do both and change it, like in the summer or like even before the season. Like there's plenty of time. So, uh, but right now it sure seems like it's heading in the direction of Mike Kafka calling plays. He said he's had some in-depth conversations with Brian Daboll also about it.
Yeah, and it makes sense. That's what they brought Mike Kafka in here to do. He's staying here, so you might as well keep him do it. And I think, like you mentioned, being more of the head coach than just a play caller. But I think Kafka is a good play caller overall, and especially when you're dealing with a young QB, and not to get too nitty gritty, but like he's gonna figure out the things you're comfortable with. You're gonna do those, and then he's gonna figure out 3-4 different ways to do those things when defenses start to pick up on the things that you like and work off of that. And so I think Kafka is good to do that with Jaxson Dart. I think it just makes the most sense for them. Um, I
Also, let's be honest. Did they have more success with Brian Daboll calling plays while also being the head coach, or did they have more success with Mike Kafka calling the plays?
yeah, it was with Kafka. Now they both had moments where their offenses looked pretty bad, but I think we all look at the context and can see
Look,
that.
Brian Daboll clearly has success as a play caller, right? Like he had a lot of success as a play caller in Buffalo, but he also didn't have the head coaching responsibilities at that same time.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think Daboll's a bad play call. I just think it's still Daboll's offense. Kafka, I think, is better at some of the, adding variance to what they do. We'll see with the run game what they're able to develop there, because we haven't seen Kafka call one without Saquon Barkley, and then Daboll with what happened last year. So we'll see. But I think it's the smart decision. If you're keeping Kafka around, let him call the plays and allow Daboll to be the more of the head coach thing. And John Mara said it. And, Joe Schoen even said in his opening press conference, Ryan Dunleavy reminded me of that. Like he said, I'd prefer the head coach to not be calling plays. So,
Pressure from the top.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assumption probably at this point.
I talked a lot about what the expectations are for this team on the most recent episode. And I've also seen some, reports or little nuggets of like, their seat's not as hot as people are making it out to be, right? It's a lot more secure than the way John Mayer's end of season presser made it to be. Maybe you don't agree with that at all, but like, what are the expectations for this team? Because I feel like in year 4, it should be a little more clear cut. Like I feel like there should be less nuance when it comes to expectations for them.
I mean, I don't know how you could think that there's not pressure on them to succeed. They just went 3-14, Robbie. Like, come on. If you go 3-14 and go 4-13 this year, like you're not going to keep your job in year 4, by the way. You know what I mean?
But what if they go 6-11? Like I don't want to do the keep hypotheticals and stuff. But we know the
There's
Giants
a lot of nuance to that.
I understand. That's my thing is what is the expectation? At 6-11, is there an actual conversation of keeping it together? Again, without going into, this guy looked like that, but like just raw going into the year, what are the expectations from top to the top down?
I think they just have to show significant growth. I mean, I kind of said the same last year, but it's true. Like they need to end this season with giving the impression that they are ready to compete like the next year when Jaxson Dart becomes their full-time starting quarterback, right? And or whenever they get better full-time quarterback play. Like that's the goal here. Like you can't, they're in year 4. Like you have to show improvement, which by the way should be easy. You went 3-14. Yeah, like obviously you should be able to show improvement. If you don't, forget it. There's no way they're coming back. But to me, it's just John Mara, and he always says it's never a hard number. He needs to feel like the program is heading in the right direction at the end of the year. And what that means, I think, this year is there has to be a sense that next year they're really ready to be a serious contender. Now, Jaxson Dart's a huge part of that. There's a huge nuance to that. I think that's going to be Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's pitch. Like, hey, we just drafted this quarterback. We had 1 year with him. Look at the growth. Look what he's done. Do you really want to switch schemes. Do you really want a new scheme, a new offense for this guy? Remember what John Mara said about Daniel Jones?
Yeah.
We screwed up this kid, however many times over, whatever, by changing quarterbacks, quarterback coaches, schemes. I shouldn't say quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators and schemes and coaches on him left and right. They're not going to want to do that to Jaxson Dart. So that's going to be the pitch.
Yeah, and I think it is the smartest pitch too, because it would be a mess. I guess this all relies really on Jaxson Dart. But here's the issue: is if Jaxson Dart, let's say Jaxson Dart plays 5-6 games and plays really badly, right? That's not enough for me to want to move on. Like again, like if the 4th, 5th pick, like I don't think I'm going to be banging on the table. Oh, get another quarterback. Like I want to get. I didn't like him pre-draft, but I want to give the guy at least a chance, and especially where you drafted him, you're admitting that that's a little more of a project. Like, you give him a chance, even if he looks really bad in his rookie year. So there shouldn't be this pressure of like Jaxson Dart has to be really good. You got to make Jaxson Dart look really good. So that's why I think that what is the expectation for them is a very complicated, question for them, because even if Jaxson Dart comes in and plays bad and you fire him, then what are you doing? Like, what are you hiring on? What, who's getting the job based on what?
That's why it would have made sense. I mean, we could sit here and talk about how much more sense it would have been made to make that move. You just went 3-14. You're heading in the wrong direction. You're about to reset and get a new quarterback. That was the time to reset and get a new coach and regime.
Yeah. That's well, no, I guess not obviously, but
now they're the Jets and the Bears.
I'm trying to like ignore that stuff. Even though was saying it all November and December.
You're creating a scenario where they move off the coach, and how, like you asked the question of like what do they have to do? So like the downside of like that hypothetical is if it goes bad and they have to reset and everything is wrong, then you are like that's what they're doing. They put themselves in a spot where they are now doing what those teams that we laughed at for years did.
Which is why I hope they get a year 5. That's why I just hope they get a year 5, because right now it's nuance and all this, where next year it wouldn't be that. It'd be like, hey, you 3 guys, be good. If not, then you're gone. Every single one of you. We don't need to have these long discussions about what about this guy. It's as simple as that.
You want to see growth, and you want to have hope and promise going into next year. Okay, that's the year, and it really should be. If these guys are legit, like next year is the year. Okay, they got all these young guys that they're touting now. They're playing now. Year 3, that's when they should be significant players. They should be the best players on the team. And you built something. Okay, now we just need that one little extra boost to get over the top, which presumably would be Jaxson Dart.
Right. Yeah, and hopefully that is the case. From my fan point of view, hopefully that's as simple as that. It's like, all these pieces do look really good. Let's see how good Dart is, and if he's not, then it's bad, and if it is, then we're competing, and that's what we've been wanting to do for 10 years and haven't been able to. But it's you get these 2 months before training camp, and that's going to be a lot of speculation in those, and that's the one where it's like I don't really know, like, what are my expectations for the team? Like, what is John Mara? Like, does he expect them to look at, they made these defensive additions and they really had a great offseason? Like, what is the expectation for that to turn into? Is it 6 wins and double the wins and improvement? Or are they like, no, like we should be competing for a playoff spot?
Knowing these guys and just knowing the way NFL teams operate in general, they put together this team. They thought they put together a good team last year. So they're sitting internally. This is just my, guesstimate that, and this based on knowing how, NFL people think, that they built a good team, that they're going to be good. They're going to be much better than people think this year. The defense is going to be good. Their offense would, all they needed was a more competent quarterback. It's going to solve so many of their problems. They're thinking they can win a bunch of games. They're going to surprise a lot of people, that they can make a run at the playoffs. Like, that's how they think. And that's how teams think.
That's what I'm saying, though, is what happens if that doesn't happen and they win 5-6 games? Like, that's where I'm trying to like figure out is what is the temperature of like, no, it's time to do that, or is it that'd be nice, but that's not realistically what we're expecting this year. So, and again, if they have this coaching advantage, they have 4 years of players, and they have Russell Wilson, they should be able to win, 8 games or so. Like that should be the expectation, but I guess we're sitting here projecting over nothing. Has there been like a surprise standout or depth chart spot in OTA so far, or just a guy who's like really impressing that wasn't expected? I know you've only been to 2, but
it was interesting that Cordell Flott was in there running with the ones today. That caught my attention. He made a play. Like I think that's Evan Neal was with the first team today. I think that definitely also. Now I know Greg Van Roten and John Runyon Jr. weren't participating in any team drills, but the fact that they're throwing Evan Neal in there and giving him a shot in that spot is definitely notable to me. And like they always say, this is the passing camp. So, but Darius Slayton, man, he's the guy right now because Malik Nabers is injured. So, with Russell Wilson's ability to throw it deep, like you're like, oh, you know what? Darius Slayton might be able to do some damage with Russell Wilson as his quarterback. Okay, you could see their strengths aligning. You know what I mean? Like what both of them do complements each other.
I mean, I like hearing that. Darius Slayton is 1,600 yards away from being second all time in Giants receiving. So all he kind of needs is like one his best year and then like another regular year for him, and he could be there.
That's wild, by the way.
It really is. And Amani like has smoked everybody. Like it's Odell. It's a classic June argument. Like who's the greatest Giants receiver? And then it's Amani Toomer, but Odell was the best. Odell is clearly the best, but Amani has him by over 400 or 4,000 yards. Like
Amani had a better career. Odell had a better pinnacle. Odell at his best was
a Hall of Fame level player.
Yeah,
Odell was on a Hall of Fame trajectory, but like it's crazy. It's not like if he stayed with the Giants, he would have got that number. Like he would still be second by, with his numbers by like, a good 1,500 to 2,000 yards.
Yeah, he needed a lot more. Like Amani has a really good career. Like he had a full, good, solid, I'm a high-end receiver career with the Giants. And so you would have to stay a long time to beat his number.
Yeah, he played for 13 seasons for one team. But yeah, what the hell were we talking about? Oh yeah, Darius Slayton seems to be like a standout for you. Which again, last camp was let's push Darius Slayton out training camp. He wasn't getting involved at all. They were forcing Daniel Jones to throw the deep passes in all the camp. So Hyatt was getting those targets, Nabers was getting it. And then Wandale was getting like 4-yard pass. It was 4-yard passes consistently. And Slayton was getting pushed out because he wasn't getting any second team reps either, which makes sense. It'd be interesting to see Slayton with, full time with a different QB for the first time. Obviously, he can do more than just be a deep threat, but he is a good deep threat as well.
You brought up something else about Wandale that reminded me. He talked today also about how he said he's running, different routes. There's going to be more routes. There's more to him. Like he was not happy last year with what it turned like what he was being asked to do on a regular basis, basically go and running these short routes, getting killed, right? Like just taking big hits left and right. So I we haven't seen too much of it yet, but he says that's happening. So I'll have to wait and see, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
I think Wandale benefits from a passing attack that is more down the field, not because he should be the one getting those, but it just opens up more space for him underneath. I'm not a Wandale hater at all. Like I think he's a good player. I think there's conversations you can have about like, you got Nabers, you just paid Slayton. Is Wandale what he does replaceable at a cheaper price? And I've tried to figure out what a good contract would be for Wandale, and there's really nothing to compare it against.
Well, he's got to prove this year. Okay, here's another different quarterback. It's going to look different. You're going to run some different routes, or so they say. Let's see what you can produce. Like we need to see what you're going to be. Like we keep saying, oh, he's this, he's that, but.
Well, I don't. I think his role is the same. I think it's the role is a more beneficial spot now because it's not teams really baiting in on that.
Can he make yards after the catch then?
Yeah, that'll be the separator. Be a real yak threat and create explosives that way. Because this idea, like him playing outside and getting deep passes, you can – that can happen, but that's not anything you should ever be relying on. That's more of a let's throw its tendency changer out there for you. But again, it'll be interesting. Now Russ struggles with the quick game and stuff, so I think I know what Wandale is. I'll say that. Like I don't have any. I'm not like trying to figure out what Wandale Robinson is. What'll be interesting to see is what his role is and how much volume he's getting compared to last year, where he was getting all this volume, but teams were really baiting in on it. So that'll be interesting. Is there any reason, like, other than just are they just being cautious with Nabers? Like, are you guys even seeing him out there on the field? Is he secretly not there? Like, how come a guy who finished the season is not getting any run in OTAs? It's not like an Andrew Thomas situation.
Yeah, I think it's weird, but he was out there. I saw him, he's not actually working, but he was standing there in the huddle. He was just no helmet. And so he was like joking around, running. Like, so I don't think it's anything serious, but I mean, it does raise the question, like, is this we're going to have to be dealing with the whole time with him, like throughout his career? Like, even last year, I don't know if you remember, late in the season, every Friday, it was like, where's Nabers today? His hamstring on the cold, blistery Friday is bothering him. And they're like, oh, I forget what the injury was, but they said about an injury last year. Well, this is something he dealt with in college. So now he's dealt with whatever the previous one they mentioned. I think it was hamstring or toe.
Well, I was just wondering.
So I feel like they said something else last year, like, oh, he dealt with that in college. He's been dealing with this since college. Like 2 different injuries he's been dealing with since college, I think.
Well, I just wanted to know because people were just tweeting out that he wasn't out there. So I'm like, is this like this? Like, are they saying he's there, but he's
out there later in practice?
Okay, then I'm not. I don't have any worry about.
And he's running around. He's fine.
Okay,
nothing I would be worried about seriously.
Okay, that eases my mind because I was like, did he have like some secret surgery? Like I'm pretty sure that Pat Leonard
said there was no surgery.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure Pat Leonard knows that John Runyon had surgery, and
we all know John Runyon had surgery.
But Brian Daboll will never answer. Like, just he had surgery. It is what it is.
I'm pretty sure John Runyon told us he was going to have surgery at the end of last year.
Yeah, I just know that Pat has asked that question like 10 times, and he never gets the answer.
He just wants them to say he had surgery. But like I'm pretty sure John Runyon Jr. told us like the baggy day at the end of the year that he told us a baggy day at the end of the year that he was gonna have the surgery, and we don't know if he, like there was no like, oh, he did have the surgery moment, but yeah.
Well, Pat asked it at the owners
too.
Yeah, Pat asked it at the owners meeting, and they didn't answer. Or Shane didn't answer. I think he's asked it at every press conference since. Like, has John Runyon had did he have surgery? And it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to get into any of that stuff.
So that means yes, though.
Yeah, but Pat.
When I asked him if Malik Nabers had a procedure, he said no.
Okay, there you go.
And so when you ask if John Runyon had a procedure, I'm not going to get into that. That means yes, right?
Yeah.
That's code word for I'm not going to tell you, but I also don't want to blatantly lie and say no.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. So it's been, I'm asking this everyone because the Giants drafted Jaxson Dart. It's been over a month now. I'm sure you guys, are looking for information on different guys pre-draft, but now that the Giants have their guys, I'm sure you're going out and reaching out to touch points on, connections to Jaxson Dart. Is there anything you've learned from him about him post-draft, whether it's from being there in the building or from talking to other people that might not be something that everyone's talking about?
I just think you see his personality, and like that's kind of what. So I had talked to somebody, I don't know, like right before the combine, and they're like, "You'll see, people are going to like Jaxson Dart as the draft process goes along. He's going to do everything right. Everybody likes him. Like he's going to work hard. He has that like swag, for lack of a better word, and you see that. You see like it resonates even on the field in the way he goes about his business. You could see that in Jaxson Dart, and that's why even we talked to Brandon Brown today. This is the general manager of the Giants, obviously, and he said, like one of the things that they found out throughout the process was when they like to ask players, who do you want to play with on other teams. And a lot of players, whether it's in the SEC, guys that played with him in the Senior Bowl, said Jaxson Dart. And it's because of that personality and the way he carries himself. He's going to be the kind of guy that everyone on the team and everyone on the offense likes and is friends with. He has the ability to relate to a lot of different people. So I think that's kind of from watching from a distance or watching closely, but not being in the room. That's kind of what I noticed.
Has he learned how to say "set hut" with a loud voice?
I saw him under center today during drills, taking snaps. So I think he has done that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we got that down.
Daboll's a real treat, man. What a treat that guy is.
Oh, you did. I mean, I will defend him on that one. Like, he's gonna get the. It's just something they didn't ask him to do.
Well, the idea was that press conference when he got, sarcastic with me about it. He wouldn't say anything about Jaxson Dart. We just needed him to, like, Jaxson Dart was going to talk later. So people are going to have to write stories about Jaxson Dart. So it was like, just say anything about Jaxson Dart. Like, give us something about his development. And he's like, no, he'll get reps. And that was it. And so it was like, all right, let me ask something where maybe he'll give you something on Jaxson Dart that he needs to work on. So, hey, maybe here's an easy throwaway. And then he started to, make a joke out of it, and maybe try. And then so people see the clips and they're like, "Oh, why are you asking such a stupid question?" I was like, I was just trying to get him to say anything on what they're going to be working on with Jaxson Dart. It could be the most basic thing, like a snap count, which, by the way, they did talk about. There's video clips of them talking about him never taking a snap count in all those pre-draft videos.
I haven't seen those videos. I know the John Gruden one went viral, which actually I haven't even finished that John Gruden video. Which, is what it is. I also, this is a question I'm asking. Where does Daniel Bellinger stand? I know this is not the most, clickbaity question, but like, where does Daniel Bellinger stand as someone who does have that performance escalator in his contract? Is clearly not the first team tight end for them, and they kind of like Manhurts as the second inline blocker when they run two tight ends, and then drafting one in the 7th round. I think Bellinger's the second best tight end on the team, but is he? How's he integrating with the team right now?
I think he's the best tight end on the team.
Second best. I like Theo more than Bellinger.
I think Bellinger's a better all-around player than Theo. I mean, maybe Theo develops into a better player, but like you said, he's the third tight end basically in the pecking order right now because Chris Manhurts is sort of the blocking tight end. When they go two tight ends and they want a blocker, they put him on the field. And Daniel Bellinger is just going to be a bit player, and he's going to be your third tight end right now. That's what it seems like his role is, unless something happens to Theo Johnson, which was the case last year. Now, I will say this. I think it's to be a focus of the Giants to make sure that they're able to get stuff out and maybe get them in more, guys like Daniel Bellinger, because you don't want what happened last year, whereas the guys who were kind of on the outskirts, who you need to be depth players, who you need to come play, 15, 20 snaps a game at times, we're basically checked out and weren't part of anything. You have to make sure to get something out of Daniel Bellinger. I think he's an okay, solid player in this league. And we've seen it already at times. And you can't just get it, so you're just put him on ice. Like, you'll only really do anything if Theo Johnson gets hurt. I think it should be a big focus of the Giants to make sure that those players, the Jalin Hyatt, the Daniel Bellinger, are part of the action and make sure they feel that they're part of the action so that they don't have the problem last year where their depth is just so bad because when they ask these other guys to come in, you get nothing, which is what the case was last year. I mean, they got nothing from Daniel Bellinger when he was sitting there as the third tight end for the most part, right?
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see like how they use. I think Kafka again used. Obviously, he was the only tight end on that team. Begging for somebody to step up as like a second option as a receiver to Slayton. But like he is the most versatile out of the group. Now, I don't think he should be starting because of that. But like he is the most versatile in a team that also doesn't carry a fullback. So I think he does bring value to the team. Like you said, in a 10 to 15 snaps per game role, where it's like, all right, there's get 7 snaps of just inline tight end, 5 snaps as being the second guy, and then 4 or 5 in the backfield. Like I think there is a role for him. It's just do they view that role as more important than the pay? Yeah, will they actually go to him with the the pay cut that they've done with a lot of different guys like Slayton, Darnay Holmes, and Nick McLeod? Like will they actually go to Daniel Bellinger with that, even if they want to keep him on the roster?
That's a later in the summer problem. You got to make sure everybody stays healthy. Make sure what his role is going to be. Where's Thomas Fedoni? Like, where's his development at? Is Greg Dulcich someone they want to keep that can do anything here? These are all questions that I think will help determine Daniel Bellinger's future.
Can you give me your address? Because I got to get you the Toney Award stuff. I usually do that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to ask what's going to happen with that.
Well,
There was
they
go the old Splitsky.
well, one, everything's mine. But I was actually going to go buy a shirt from them for this, and they took off like a lot of the shirts, including the Media Some Clowns one. So we remade it, and it's on the GiantsNationShow.com store. So I got to do that. I got to get the trophy, and then we'll do the Duncan gift card as well too, or maybe we'll do a Body Armor gift card. We'll do only sponsorships on this show now. So just go ahead and say your address real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that. I mean, I want the Toney Award, but maybe I'll send you a text or something. I think that might be a better solution. Have some, crazy show up on my doorstep.
Well, let's be real. If someone is crazy enough to show up on your doorstep, they can probably find your address fairly quickly.
True. But there was a time when somebody was calling my wife to harass her about Eli Manning because I was critical of Eli Manning years ago. So, I'm gonna pass on providing my address here. But
Okay.
you know what? I'm happy. On a serious note, I am ecstatic to get the Toney Award and put it on my bookcase and my bookshelf, so that when I do go on TV, that the Toney Award can be in the background, like you sitting there right now with your bookshelf and whatever's on there, your racing helmet, and a couple bobbleheads. I couldn't tell what that was. Oh, that's Toney. Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, some guy that owns a pawn shop sent it to me.
Really? Yeah, I didn't know there was any Kadarius Toney bobbleheads, to be honest with you.
I think they do them for all the first round picks.
I didn't know he ever got to that point, though. It was just, yeah. I am reminded recently of Kadarius Toney when I see that Shamar Stewart, the guy from the Bengals. Did you see that guy? He's holding out from mini OTAs.
I will say, at least he's showing up and being like, where Toney was just like, I'm not going, and that was the excuse. It's like, well, he didn't sign his contract yet. It's like, well, he could if he showed up to the OTAs, they could sign the contract.
I'm just thinking like, wow, what a path to follow by Shamar Stewart. Now you're right. It's different because at least he's there and he's learning the defense or whatever. But yeah, what a move by Kadarius Toney that was. All-time classic, just blowing off rookie season OTAs. Wow.
There was like so many signs, and it was just like, I'm trying to ignore these,
We kept saying it, and people like you, Bobby, you were killing us for getting on Kadarius Toney.
No, I never got on you for killing. When did I never got on. I just thought it was funny when he would get back on you guys and just laugh in your face. And at the end of the day, go out and win and ball is what the most important thing is. And he just never did that outside of 3 games.
Yeah. Well, he didn't want to go on the field. And so, yeah, that's the one thing you got to hope with Malik Nabers, that he wants to be on the field.
Nabers I'm not worried about Nabers.
Different category. I don't mean to say that he's anything like Kadarius Toney. I didn't mean it in that way, but you want him as somebody who wants to be on the field. Comes to practice.
There will be some typical wide receiver ones, Nabers annoyances, and his time here. There'll be some, but just be a great player, show up, want to play. Simple as that. Just don't.
He already proved to be 20 times the player of Toney.
Oh yeah, I'm not even comparing him to Toney. I'm comparing him to other wide receiver ones in the NFL. Don't reach the level to where your GM wants to, has thoughts about trading you. Just don't get to that level, and we're fine. There's always, not everyone's going to be, cookie cutter, do everything you want all the time type of player.
Yeah, I'm fine with shenanigans too. Yeah, that's fine. Just as long as if you're great and you could produce, you could pull off some of those things. That's fine.
Yeah. Anything else? I think we're pretty good. What do you think? You said the splits. What do you think of everything so far through 2 months now?
Yeah, I mean, your road's going about doing your thing.
Still can't get credentials to training camp, but it's other than that, it's going good.
When you go scorched earth on the Giants during the season, Bobby, what do you think is going to happen when you ask for credentials the next year?
Oh, I knew what was going to happen, but I'm gonna email them for credentials for training camp every year until the day I die. So just get ready for that email every year.
You're also still fighting the podcast, the podcast battle is still out there. Of yes, there's legitimacy to it, but there has to if you open the floodgates for podcasts, then where does it end?
Right.
Where's the line?
I get all.
So there is a legitimate case there, of like, okay, how is that handled?
Sure. They said to me, like, for any other questions, email or ask. They said ask Pat Hanlon, and I said, who is Pat Hanlon? Is there any contact info? Just like, all right, I can be like that back too.
I'm gonna sit out of this one.
Yeah, but it's been good. It's been good. I know I've been trying to get you on.
You seem to be doing your thing. We've talked about, potentially doing some things together. So maybe down the line we could find something that works out,
Yeah, I've asked you about some. I think people are gonna be like, "Oh, is Bobby asking Jordan to be the co-host of the show?"
No, that's not what we're talking about.
No. But we could see what happens.
Maybe we could find some things down the line to partner with.
That's the thing is, I'm the boss now. I get to do literally whatever I want. It's a very freeing feeling. Where it's like,
I'm not the boss.
Yeah, but
But merch ESPN.
Maybe I'll be your boss, and then I can talk down to you and all that stuff.
You're gonna run ESPN?
I'm just gonna make you move to Florida. I'm gonna be like, you gotta move to Florida. This is we require collaboration at Giants Nation show. But all right, that's an episode. Thank you, Jordan, for jumping on. What day are you guys at OTAs next week?
Thursday again.
Perfect.
Next Thursday. Yeah.
All right, Thursday again. All right, we will see you guys next week. Enjoy your weekend. Jordan, thanks again for jumping on. We will see you guys then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.